All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Daniel, and welcome back to the channel where everything mirrorless Canon cameras. We're going to be doing a live stream here of the Canon R6 and some of the Canon EOS R. EOS R, yeah, I always used to say it wrong. But we're going to be doing some editing of both of these, and I have a bunch of these done in here that I've already pre-selected. I'd say about half of them are the EOS R and the other half are the Canon R6. So let's just start with the Canon R6, I guess. We'll do this one since this is a very recent photo. Let's go and reset the settings. So original, reset, edit. So here we are. And I definitely have respect for people that do the animal photography because I could not do it. It's way too difficult to get dogs to do what I want them to. Come in here, and I find everybody has their own little specific way of how they edit, and I usually, pretty standard, go this, edit the exposure, lift these shadows until you can see that eye a little bit more. Wow, that's like all the shadows are pulled up. Maybe a little bit of contrast, boost the highlights since it's was a decently underexposed image. And then we're gonna go, welcome everybody that just came. We are editing the Canon R6 and the EOS R photos. I'd say I have about half and half. We're just gonna go through them. These are some of the best photos that I've got out of the last like 6 months, and even more people are coming. I'll explain again. EOS R, Canon R6, 50-50 here, and we're gonna go through and do some editing with them. This is the first photo that I've chosen, and well, since we just have people that just showed up, let's go back to the original. Here it is, the underexposed and everything. I definitely have respect for those people that do the animal photography because I can't get dogs to do what I want them to at all. So, and if my face or anything, and also make sure that if my mic starts going out or anything, let me know. And if my face is in front of all of the editing stuff over here, let me know and I'll go over and I'll move it so that you guys can see, but I'll try to keep what I'm editing up top. So anyways, into here, I then enjoy going into here and doing a slight adjustment to the curve. And since this is kind of a nature, I enjoy maybe not quite so dark, having a little bit of matte finish on there. And then we go in here and boost the vibrance. But really, both these cameras are incredibly sharp, and I've enjoyed both of them a lot. And if you go in here, you can see it's still very sharp. And this is crazy zoomed in. If you can see that. There we go. All of that is still very sharp. And then I don't enjoy some of the blue that's coming in here, so we're gonna actually drop the saturation and then make up for the color in the reeds by just increasing this right there. Kind of enjoy that. And then a little bit of texture and clarity and sharpening. And then yeah, it's still a little bit underexposed. We'll boost this up to about right there. Yeah, so that's good. Now let's move over to a Canon R photo. So this photo right here is the original, originally from the EOS R that I had. Let's show you the before the edit. It was just this right here, and I pretty much just blacked all this out. But I enjoy this one. It worked pretty well. And we're going to then, it's just a nice silhouette here. Reset the edit. And first thing is just the cropping it. Right about there. And then we're going to boost these shadows. And we're going to come with the brush I just drop all of that until it's all black. And then we have to go through and remove all of those windows or the little lamps that are in the background. So they all disappear. There we go. Always take a little bit longer on the heel and cloning. All right. Then we go here and we boost the highlights. Drop that back down. I actually need that. So we need to actually boost the highlights and drop the shadows so the silhouette comes out. Then come in here a little bit brighter there. And then we want to, they've changed this since when I first took it. So we're going to take the highlights and boost them. What do we want them in blue? Crazy blue area. Yeah, they've changed this, but let's see if I can figure out how I did it the original time. There we go. I'm not in love with that color. We'll find something. Yeah, we'll call it good on that. Similar. Then let's see here, back to the Canon R6. Just this one, it was a nice wedding, nice colors. And then show original. Being able to, this thing, the Canon R6 had some awesome dynamic range on it. What is going on, the guys that just showed up? Let me know if my head is in the way of all of these. We're just kind of going over some of these photos from the Canon R6 and the Canon EOS R. I did a little bit of editing at first, but just going over just the sharpness, dynamic range, and everything between the R and the Canon R6. I've definitely enjoyed both of them, and I think they're very, very capable cameras. The real thing that I've noticed, the difference between the two cameras is obviously being able to shoot at a faster shutter rate, which is phenomenal. But the dynamic range in the shadows is way better on the Canon R6. The EOS R had some great dynamic range as well, but here it just really doesn't crush any of them. Like these ones, there's definitely a lot of grain there when you boost it up. I have another photo that we're literally in a cave and it still was able to do it with the Canon R6. Hey, welcome everybody to the live stream. We're just kind of going over some of these Canon R6 and the Canon EOS R, yes. And this one was done with a on a hike over here in Finland, F13, and it's really awesome how these come back. We'll show you the original and how it just retained a lot of these. Like I was saying, that the detail in the shadows is definitely retained even on this R6 and all in the clouds, and the dynamic range is awesome, but it's even more so with the Canon EOS R, especially when shooting videos, and specifically in C-Log. The Canon R6 has a way better C-Log, and I think that also the colors that people are mad about is the oversaturated colors with the Canon R6 versus the EOS R and the other lineup for the mirrorless. It's not there. It's not a problem that I've found in the video modes. Back to this one. But yeah, having all that detail just pop right back in there. And this is one of those ones where you could totally edit it however you wanted, and it would still be an awesome photo. All right. So we have 5 people here on the stream, and where's everybody coming from? Just let me know. Throw that down there. And then this one. This one is a highlight. This one I left the camera on auto. This was shot with the Canon R. And ISO 200, 40 millimeter. And the 40 millimeter is not the pancake lens is not a really good lens. Like, it's nice that it's small, but as far as sharpness and then the overall quality of the glass, it's just not very good. So it's like my travel lens. But we took this one, I left it on auto, and it blew out the highlights so bad. But the file sizes and shooting raw and everything, we were able to bring back a lot on this photo. This was the Canon R. Idaho, yes. Scotland, wow. Yeah, I have a buddy that I take photos with that's from over there in the United Kingdom area. He's actually the one that loaned me the 35mm. So shout out to Jimmy. But yeah, and I love on this one, you can see these streaks that are coming across your face from all the rain. And this was a super cold day. We actually made a video about this that you can check out. What else about this one? Yeah, this was what was it at? F8. F8. And it still had some of the detail left in the sky, but there was a lot more detail than when we had it. Yeah, pretty much all on that photo. Then some nighttime, evening. This was shot on the Canon EOS R again. And it's like perfect. The R was perfect for if you just wanted to go and take photos in a studio, or take photos that weren't moving very fast, or take like the average photos that you'd think of as like a photographer going and doing, with the exception of wildlife and sports. And so taking stuff like this was perfect. I think this was highly stylized because I use this as a thumbnail for something. But yeah, totally blown up. Let's actually edit this one and see how much we can pull back without reset edits. Without the, if we just do auto, oof. Yeah, I've really stopped enjoying the auto button lately. So let's pull and this was shot on the R, Canon EOS R. If this is, did it break again? I think my gradients might have broke. We'll just do the lazy gradient. And reduce the exposure a little bit, highlights. See if we can get a little bit more texture out of here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Pretty much a gradient. Then we'll come back over here and raise the shadows. And then what I want to do with here, because it's overexposed here as well, so we're going to need another layer here. Come through the water. I'm not going to do any exacts, but just close enough. There we go. Right about there. Now normally I'd go through and make sure that these are very precise and all around that dock and look nice, but we're not going to do that. Maybe a little bit of blue into it as well. Okay, and then I think I put orange into here, and then I think the last touch, just because I can't see it, just boosting that sunrise. And then I always enjoy messing with this a little bit, boost that up, and since it is, again, a little bit of that matte look. All right. But yeah, just being able to go in here and still see all that texture, because this is got an amazing amount of zoom right there on this. This was the Canon R, EOS R again, and then even throughout there, that texture. Oh, why does it go back there? Okay, and then here was a bridge that we did. I also did this on a hike with Julia. This one was shot with the really good kit lens, the 24-105 f4. And this one was a ISO 100. It was an overcast day, f4, and then, yeah, 1/600th of a second, pretty much. And all the way zoomed in. And let's see here, how nope, Julie's not gonna like it if I do that. Let's zoom in on her hand. See how much texture's there. There we go. That's crazy zoomed in. So the Canon R had, I think, 32 megapixels in there. And so you were able to crop in a lot. But even on the Canon R6, let's see here. where is one that I can zoom in on for the Canon R6 and show you the texture? I mean, let's do this one. This one's even at a high ISO here. We did some feeding of the birds. Maybe this wasn't a very good photo. I just pulled this. I'm sure I have a different one that's a better photo of that. Let's just go back to the beginning one. This is the Canon R6. Yes, and this is a 35. And this is insanely zoomed in. So if we only zoom in somewhat, you can still see a bunch of the texture that's still there. Especially for if you're doing any social media, then you can almost crop virtually infinitely into either the Canon EOS R or the Canon R6, and you will have a bunch of room to still edit with. And as far as the colors, who all here is shooting with the Canon EOS R or the Canon R6? Let me know down in there, and let me know what you think of cropping the images, and if you're posting them, if you're doing like prints, or if you're putting them into the wonderful internet and then dropping them there, where there's all sorts of compression on Facebook and YouTube and all of those where it compresses. So let me know how you're using your camera in that way. And then the low light on the Canon R6. This is something I did for a thumbnail where I was talking about it, where I just threw the Canon R6 on auto, and it was shooting up almost to, what was that, 200,000 ISO? Like ridiculous amount of ISO. And as long as there's light on the subject, it was still able to get it. And this one, how far did we push it on this one? No, this is only at 2500. So this one wasn't pushed that hard. And there's still a bunch of the texture in there. Reset that to the original. But you can pull a lot out of these shadows. No, we want to reset the entire edit. Why isn't it letting me reset the entire edit? There. Okay, so there's the original edit. Let's adjust, make it a little bit cooler, and then see how much shows up in these shadows. Like, yeah, the face is blown out, but you still have a lot in the shadows over there. And the shadows. Okay, now let's zoom in and examine. So there's still some of the texture and how it goes off nice and soft still, even though that's a very, very harsh light. And that's, I mean, you'd expect that from anything. Like, this is a Canon R6 is a $2,000 camera. So having that nice, even though it's super harsh light really close to the face, being able to still handle that is very, very nice. And then this was from a low light video that I had for the Canon R6. Let's go over here to the settings. And this was handheld as well. So having the IBIS is probably, let's just say top 3 things that most helps the Canon R6 be so much better than the Canon R is the IBIS, top 3. And then I'd say dynamic range is actually probably the first. I'd say dynamic range is so much more important than anything else that you get in a camera. And then unless you're doing sports, then other things are more important. Anyways, but yeah, let me know down there what you're shooting with. Are you shooting with the R or the Canon R6? The original, being able to pull all these highlights out is always super nice. And I'd say the R6 definitely does it better. Original, go back here. Reset edits, and then just doing the shadows and the overall exposure. And this was handheld. I think we did this at, what did we do this with? Oh yeah, this was the 40mm that I was telling you that I didn't really like how soft the images out of the 40mm. I kind of just keep it around because I'm too lazy to sell it right now, but I've kept it. And then there was this one shot with the Canon R. And this was a rainy day shot again with the 40mm. I have a lot from the 40mm in here. Let's switch over to the 100mm. And this one right here, the colors for this was a wedding that I shot. The Canon R6 100mm 2.8, and this was shot at 100 ISO, 100mm, 2.8, 1/1000th of a second. And this was me running behind them, just taking photos. And just got this nice one there going over to meet them. And this is actually the courthouse that they were married in. So it was pretty cool. And once again, the shadow retention and then the colors that come out. I don't think I pushed it too hard with any of the editing. Yeah, like the vibrance didn't get pushed too far. And did I have any overlays? Yeah, so I had an overlay here where I pushed the building. I just dropped the highlights on the building, I guess. Oh, and the saturation. Because yeah, the brick on that was much more vibrant in real life. And that's one of the great things, that even though it might not always come out, having the raw photo just definitely does it. And another beautiful picture that everything just looks very, like, not soft, but the lighting, even from the harsh sections and the light there with it, it kind of rolls off of it, even though there's pretty much direct sunlight in the top section. And here with the backlight, this is a very Instagram photo, I guess you could say. And then just, it started, we'll reset the edits. So yeah, totally black, and then being able to get the highlights up there still. So bringing up the shadows, dropping the highlights, and still having all that texture. I mean, even with a lesser camera, you can still do very similar things. But it's always nice. I mean, I bought a Canon 60D, and the difference between a 60D and, like, 'cause you always think, oh, the equipment doesn't matter, it's always who's using it. But man, I used the 60D for about a month while I was waiting to pick up the Canon R6, and it was one of the worst photography experiences of my life. I will always be thankful for the Canon R6 and any of this better gear that I have, because that was such a terrible experience shooting with that and having it just fight me the entire time. And so being able to use a higher end camera where the colors stay, the lenses work with the camera really well, and stuff like that, it's something that I'm definitely grateful for. And we can go in here, and even the texture right there. Let's see if, I don't think that's pixelated, but this is insanely zoomed in, and you can still see a bunch of the texture. And so yeah, that's one of the biggest things. I'm on this Facebook group for the Canon R6 Facebook group, and people, at least once a day, somebody asks, hey, is this camera good enough? Is 20 megapixels good enough of a sensor? And the answer is yes. It is very much so good enough for any type of photography, even doing prints. I think the cinema cameras, I know cinema is a little bit different than photography, but the cinema cameras are like 7 megapixels for I forget which one it is. The one that always does all the cinematic shots and everything for the big Hollywood movies is 7 megapixels. But it's because they have so much more dynamic range popped into there. Yeah, so Meta asks, should I buy a new camera and lens, or just put a better lens to improve the outcome of my raw photos? So pretty much anything, if you have a budget, going for the lenses, like this higher end Canon with the red lenses. This is the 100mm or prime lenses. upgrading into those rather than upgrading the body is almost always the best way to get the better quality. But it really depends. If you're trying to do sports, it's really hard to do sports with a camera that can't do a high frame rate. So it really is situationally dependent on what you're doing. And now that everything's going towards the mirrorless world, and I don't think Canon's making any more EF lenses, upgrading the body into something that will be that will take the RF glass is also a good idea if you're planning on thinking about the future. So those are just some things to take into consideration. Did I have any more examples of the Canon R that I wanted to show? R. And then whatever this one was, the valley right there next to it. So we're going to show original, and then once again it's just kind of a little bit of a flat image. And we're gonna I did a video with let's see if I can say his name right, Solanto blog over here, and he showed me his pretty much editing trick, and it's pretty much put the contrast to 30, highlights down 30, shadows up about 30, and then adjust the exposure. Oh my goodness, I need some water. That's what it is. Hey, if you just showed up, we're looking at some of the Canon R versus the Canon R6 videos, not videos, photos. And this one is the Canon R. This was on a hike right next to this bridge. This is a shot from where this bridge is at. And the rest of his editing was pretty much just add vibrance, and then he comes down and he adds a little bit of vignette. Oops, wrong direction. And that's what he did on every single one of the photos that we did. We did blind photo editing, and that's all he did for each one of them, and it worked. And this is a landscape and a little bit different, and doing some stuff with the water. But yeah, it pretty much turned out awesome again. He's been editing since probably the original versions of Lightroom. But yeah, that was a beautiful hike around. I believe it was called the Small Bear Trail here in Finland. It's midway in Finland. And so yeah, these were some of the final photos, and then this was one that I took yesterday. I really wanted to do. This was with the 100mm 2.8 macro, and surprisingly enough, when you do macro photography with your eye, the eye focus does not work. So I had to do spot, and just going in here, and I'll show you the original. Show original, and I didn't crop it at all, even though I wanted to. I had a few others that I did, but the real challenge here is battling the reflection in the eye to make that as minimal as possible, and then also trying to get the room as bright as possible, so that the iris, the maximum amount of the iris, because if you had a bunch of lights in your face, then the iris is going to be really, really small, which is what you're looking for. I almost said the other way around. But if it's super dark in the room, which reduces the reflections in the eye, then you end up with, of course, the reflections in the eye, but you end up with a much smaller, oh my goodness, aperture for your eye. We'll just say aperture for the eye. I forget what it's called, but just so that this area looks bigger. And I pretty much just went in there and sharpened it and lifted it. I'll just do the edit here that I did after I reset it. It was pretty straightforward and simple. Boost this, a little bit of extra contrast, and then of course coming in here and removing that itty bitty piece of white light that's stuck there because it just looks bad. And then coming down and boosting the vibrance a little bit, and then texture, clarity, sharpening, because it just makes all of this really pop. And then I wanted the green a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of the green to pop in the eye, but I didn't really want to change the color of my eye. Like if I took the saturation and pushed it really crazy and then adjusted all of my skin tones, I didn't want that. And yeah, definitely by far my favorite lens is the 100mm 2.8. I think I'm going to try and get the 85 RF and see how that does. That's probably going to replace this lens. It's not a red band, but I think it'll be just as good because it's an RF, and that makes it a little bit more sharp. So we will see. So this is where I'm going to be signing off. Thank you all for watching through this. This is my first live stream ever, and yeah, once again, thank you all for watching. If you have not subscribed or you're not a subscriber, we go over all things mirrorless Canon cameras. Everybody watching this after the live stream, thank you as well.